Welcome to our online event, Women and Parkinson's. Today's program is brought to you by Parkinson's Community Los Angeles. We're so fortunate to have with us a panel of distinguished women here to share their experiences with Parkinson's disease. This event will be moderated by Dr. Adrienne Kiddo. I'm Judy Yaris, PCLA Board Vice President. And for those of you who don't know us, we're a nonprofit that supports families living with Parkinson's through our free education programs like this one, online and in-person support groups, social events, and more. Today's conversation is brought to you by our generous sponsors, Abbott, Acadia, and Boston Scientific, and by important donations from people just like you in the Parkinson's community. If you appreciate our work, please consider making a donation at PCLA.org. Your donation is 100% tax deductible, so thank you in advance. We rely on your generosity to help us continue this important work. Now please join me in welcoming Patricia Chavez, Laura Holt-Erlig, and Heather Kennedy, our panelists. Our moderator today is Dr. Adrienne Kiddo. Dr. Adrienne Kiddo is a board-certified neurologist and movement disorder specialist at UCLA and the West Los Angeles VA, Padrick Parkinson's Disease Research Education and Clinical Center. Dr. Kiddo participates in clinical research and patient care and is interested in interdisciplinary treatment and movement disorders, including DBS, botulinum toxin injection, and rehabilitative therapies. Also, Dr. Kiddo is a PCLA Medical Advisory Board member. So let's begin.
Thank you so much.
You.
Yeah, thank you so much, Judy. And thank you especially to our panelists and to the rest of you joining us today. We feel that talking about the experience of women living with Parkinson's disease is really essential to raise awareness and also build community and share our stories to empower and educate one another. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from our three panelists today. And I'll take a moment to let them each introduce themselves. Heather, why don't you go ahead and start?
Hi, I'm Heather Kennedy, and I'm a Virgo, and I like long walks. Oh wait, wrong place. I just wanted to say I'm really happy to be here amongst women who are so accomplished and helping others so much. You've helped other women more than I can even imagine, especially since we are underrepresented in this field, especially since then. I'm just so grateful to be here, have a chat with y'all. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura Erlig, and I am a mother and a daughter and a wife and a teacher. And I just am really grateful to the PCLA group and the support group for the women, because that has been just a real treat and an opportunity to share with other women about what's going on with us. And so I really appreciate that.
Wonderful, thanks for being here. And Patricia, welcome.
Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're at. I'm in Cape Cod right now, so not quite sure where people are at. Thank you for inviting me. I too am a mother, a daughter, a sister, and was a teacher for over 32 years. And I am thankful as well that I found PCLA. They've been the best thing that has happened to me since finding out about Parkinson's. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. So as a neurologist and movement disorder specialist who cares for people living with Parkinson's disease, I think many of us recognize that women, we know, are a minority of patients with Parkinson's, with the incidence almost half of what it is in men. And as Heather alluded to, for that reason, women have been underrepresented in research in the field, and I think their voice is really not amplified to share their experiences living with Parkinson's disease, which we know can be different from those of men. And so I've prepared a few questions, some things I'd like to discuss with our panelists today, but the chat is also open. And so if any of you have specific questions, I'll keep an eye on the chat there and select some of your questions to bring to our panel as well. Working alongside my colleague, Dr. Indu Subramanian, and several women living with Parkinson's disease, we published a paper several years ago talking about the unmet needs of women living with Parkinson's disease. And one of the things that we found and highlighted in that paper was the fact that for many women, it takes much longer to arrive at a diagnosis than it does for men. And there may be many reasons why, but I was wondering if perhaps some of our panelists might be willing to share their diagnostic journey, maybe how they finally arrived at the diagnosis and what that process was like for them. Patricia, the teacher
I'll
raises
go
her
ahead.
hand. I like that. Okay.
Teacher, that's a teacher.
Yes.
I can tell you that it's been almost 3.5 years that I was diagnosed. But before that, for nearly 2 years, I was being treated for a frozen shoulder. I had the steroid shot, and I began having some symptoms. I started, I guess about a year ago, my hand started moving. And that's when I asked my doctor to send me to a neurologist. Before that, I was also getting physical therapy, and it wasn't helping. So when the movement started happening, I did get to go to a neurologist. And when I found out what it was, my family and I quickly started investigating, quickly started researching, and I realized I needed to see a movement specialist. So I called my neurologist's office and asked for an appointment with a specialist. And the one thing that I want you especially to hear is that the nurse called me back, her nurse called me back and asked, did I not believe in the diagnosis of that I was given? Did I not feel she knew what she was doing? And that was very disheartening, because I thought, after reading everything about Parkinson's, I would have thought that that office would have known that that would be the next step that I should go to. So I eventually did get a appointment. And I have to be honest with you, I left that medical group because I really felt that I needed to be in a place where there was a specialty of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think what I hear a lot in your story is not uncommon, in that it sounds like you really had to advocate for yourself to get the care that you felt you needed, even asking your primary care to see a neurologist. It wasn't that your primary care doctor recognized something and referred you. So it sounds like every step along the way for you, Patricia, you really had to advocate for yourself. So thank you
Definitely.
for sharing. Heather or Laura, do either of you want to share your experience with the diagnosis?
Well, I can tell you that it's all in my head. Apparently, the first doctor who saw me, who was not a movement symptom disorder specialist, decided that I must be an addict. I was curious, of what? The internet? Coffee? You know, I'm giving too much time to my children and to artistic pursuits. But the truth was, he needed an answer, so the ego fills in the answers. The ego needs a job, and he had a story about me. He wrote it in my permanent medical record, based on complete guessing, based on sight. He said that I looked drawn. I'm not sure what that meant. So I didn't pay much attention to that diagnosis. Went on to see a real movement symptom disorder specialist who really did run me through the gamut. And finally, years later, it took years after trying every possible antidepressant and every other kind of pill and being checked out, being told I had lupus and then probably fibromyalgia, and maybe could be a Lyme disease. Oh wait, maybe you're just depressed. It's all once again back to all in your head. So the maddening part when I hear people who don't have a diagnosis for something, that's really tough. Eventually when I got diagnosed, I really believe it. It took me a whole year to take the actual pills and start realizing that, wow, I'm really compromised here. But I took off like a shot thinking this is going to be easy. Oh, as it progresses, that's not true. So yeah, it's been quite a surprise. And I hear this a lot from women that they don't hear us say it. Like, we know something's wrong. And it was in my head, it turns out.
Quite literally in your
Stop.
brain. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing, Heather. And yeah, you brought up something that we do often hear from women, which is that they're dismissed initially, their symptoms attributed to, mental health issues like anxiety or depression, and their physical symptoms sometimes discounted. So I'm disheartened to hear that you went through that, and to say that it's not uncommon for women in this diagnostic journey. Laura.
So with my journey, it was that I had numbness in my arms when I would sleep on my side. And so I went to physical therapy and they were working on my neck and my shoulders, and I did that for years, on and off. They checked my heart to see if my blood flow, because I kept saying, well, it feels like when I wake up, I need to throw my arm over the bed and to get it to start to work. So it was very unusual kind of symptoms. And then COVID happened, and so I was walking 6 feet apart from my neighbor on the street, and we were walking down the street, and she was saying, "Why are you not moving your arm?" And I go, "I am," and she's like, "No, you're not. You're not moving your arm." And I said, "No, I'm having trouble where my foot was kind of turning in, and I was feeling like I was stumbling over my foot occasionally." And I'm like, "I don't know. I think it's all psychosomatic. It's in my head that I'm doing this." And so I was then trying to focus on walking and doing it. And then so my doctor sent me to a neurologist, and then the PT came in and did the checkup on me, and she goes, "I think you have Parkinson's." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, at least I don't have a stroke." It was like, oh, it was a relief. And not thinking, what does Parkinson's mean?
Right.
It was more like, oh, it's not what my worst fear is. And so then the doctor came in and had me walk down the hallway, and he agreed that he thought that I had Parkinson's. And the PA had told me that one way to kind of confirm your diagnosis a little bit, but it's not proven, was the DAT scan. And so I went on to ask for the DAT scan to then have that confirmation. And because of the way that my veins are and things like that, it was very difficult for them to be able to do the DAT scan, which they ended up doing, but it was an all-day experience where I had fasted the night before, and there were like multiple nurses and ultrasound with the
Trying to get your vein.
trying to
Yeah.
get my vein. And so at that point, I'm really kind of even doubting the DAT scan. Afterwards, I'm like, okay, it was a slow uptake, but at that point, there was not much liquid in my body. And so I did go ahead, and I believe that it was the case, because the arm wasn't swinging, the foot was turning in, the DAT scan was saying low dopamine, and then I took the medication, and I was, again, not knowing if it's psychosomatic, if I am improving because I'm having the medication, or if I'm having the medication and it's helping me improve. So, but over time, I feel like I have completely accepted this, and this is what I have. And I have noticed sometimes different progressions, like weakness on my right side of my body more. And then it's that I have to work harder on strength training, and I've got to continue working on making sure that I'm exercising. So that is another component, which I'm assuming you're going to probably discuss.
Yeah, we will certainly get there. But yeah, so I think thank you for sharing your story also, Laura. I think one thing that I'll echo that we do hear frequently too is just not only like being being heard and your symptoms taken seriously, but then also sort of the acceptance of the diagnosis that then follows. So once you receive the diagnosis, which might be a long journey, there's then a journey of acceptance after you're initially diagnosed. And one thing I did want to ask about a little bit was how you all have found support from friends or family in helping you navigate these things. I'll tell you one thing that we know is women with Parkinson's disease are less likely to bring somebody else to their doctor's appointments. They're less likely to see a movement disorder specialist or even a neurologist for their Parkinson's. And so tell me a little bit about how you all have found support from family or friends in, supporting you, advocating for you, accompanying you to appointments or helping you find resources. Tell me a little bit about your social support system.
I just moved back to my hometown area. I'm in a home that my mother set up for me. I'm drinking out of a cup that my mother gave me today because I was frozen and had some trouble with my microphone. I'm dressed in clothing that she received that I shipped here because I got on a plane and gave everything away. I'm painting pictures that she drove me to get paint and canvases for. She's 81, she's here. And without her, I couldn't do this. I was in California living alone, and my friends were great, but they're busy. I was very isolated. I wasn't lonely because there weren't people around. I was lonely because in a crowd of people, it's hard to invite people into your intimate space and ask for help.
Yeah.
So I knew I needed to be closer to family in these later stages. My brothers have been great, sister-in-laws, nieces and nephews, great friends here in my sort of hometown area. And this little guy catches the balls and tosses them back for me. So it is essential that we don't isolate. If you live alone, please tag in with people with Parkinson's. It is so important for you to do this. Without support, we cannot do this. We have to have those touchstones because, it can make you feel as if you're a little bit nuts, and you may be, but that's a separate issue. You know what I mean? You're not going crazy. You're isolating. And remember, when you're alone, nothing's louder than the voices in your mind and the stories you produce just by thinking too much. So
Yeah.
So thank you to family. Thanks, Mom. Thanks,
Shout out to moms
Ellie.
everywhere.
All my peeps, Nancy.
So one of the things that when I told my my mother-in-law, she actually said, "I don't believe it. You're fine." And she actually said, "You have something else. You don't have what Michael J. Fox has. You have something different because I don't have the tremor." And or I don't have it yet. So she kind of didn't believe me. And then my sister-in-law, she kind of she was saying, "Okay, you have it, but now I don't necessarily always think that you are thinking straight. So when you're talking and you're discussing something, I don't know if it's going to be completely valid because you have a mental disorder."
Wow.
So on my husband's side of the family, it's been a little bit of a rough journey.
Yeah.
On my family, My mom has supported me like hers, and she's been there for me. And my husband is here for me. My girls are here for me, but they don't understand it as well, even though they're in their 20s. They're 24 years old. They have twins, and they kind of notice some things like that I can't do as easily as I used to. They do try to like help out, where they'll say, let me do that for you on occasion. And then I have to also push back and say, I need to try to do it myself. Let me tell you when I need to do it, when I need your help. My husband has been a great support. He goes with me and plays tennis with me every night. He goes and plays ping pong when we have ping pong opportunities. He goes walking with me. So he has been my advocate for exercise. He does not go with me to the appointments. So when you say that about women, that is true. I went initially by myself. The second time I made him go with me just to kind of, if he had any questions, but usually I go by myself. I though do know that he will be there if I need him to go.
Yeah. And Patricia, did you want to share a little bit about your support system?
When I was told that I had Parkinson, it was devastating. My daughter was in San Francisco at a conference, so I wasn't able to talk to her right away. The next day she came in, I went and spoke to her and my son-in-law. And the first thing she said is, Mom, you can do this. You're always helping other people as a teacher. So we're going to call my aunts, we're going to call my uncles, my cousins, which we did. And each of them took a area of expertise on Parkinson's. And then they came back and told me what they knew. And it was overwhelming to know that I had their support. Like I said, I'm in Cape Cod, and I'm here because with my son-in-law's family, because they're my support group as well. I think the one thing that's helped me the most, though, is PCLA, being part of a group of people. We meet once a week online, and we have individuals from different states, and we talk about whatever the subject matter that we need to speak about. I also am part of a dojo that we have exercises in boxing, and I go to the senior center and walk with my neighbors. And I've told just about everybody who knows me, and that has been my greatest support. The other part to that is the group that I'm with. It's in a town about 8 miles that I have the boxing. They're not part of PCLA, so they have lots of questions. And I come back with the answers that I'm finding and letting them know about the group. And I think the best part of, next to having a family who has been so helpful, is having friends who have the same difficulties and us working together to find out what we can do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And I think, one thing that we certainly see is sometimes maybe more so for women who, the general public don't often, when they think of a picture of someone with Parkinson's, they think, of Michael J. Fox or maybe Muhammad Ali, but they don't think of a woman. And I think sometimes the burden of educating your friends and family about Parkinson's sometimes falls on you. I think, you all sort of mentioned sort of the way this maybe changed some of your relationships. And those, aren't just maybe family relationships, even your sense, your sort of role in society, that gender stereotypes and the way that impacts the way you might be perceived. We know one of the symptoms of Parkinson's can be like a decreased facial expression. And women, I think, are much more sensitive to that and judged for that in society compared to men who might just appear, stoic or something. But, a woman who doesn't smile all the time.
RBF.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So, so I think, we have to acknowledge, and I think the maybe I'll say extra burden that falls on women who are, trying to spread this education, like, yes, I'm a woman and I can have Parkinson's, and also combat some of these gender stereotypes and sort of societal expectations of our roles. I think very often too, women are caregivers, and having to shift some of those responsibilities and accept care can sometimes be challenging. And I think, Laura, you mentioned like your daughter seeing you maybe struggling to, I don't know, like chop vegetables, let's say, when you're preparing dinner or something. But that's, your role in the family and something that's important to you to continue to participate in, and sort of trying to balance, asking for help when you need it, but also still trying to enjoy those activities and participating in that role can sometimes be a real juggle, and it can change from day to day, as we know. And so that can also be sometimes difficult for people to understand, like, well, you were doing this yesterday, like, why can't you do this today? There's a lot of really wonderful and supportive comments in the chat that I just want to acknowledge, including a resource that Heather put there, the Davis Finney Foundation, which is wonderful. I think all of you who are here because you have found that finding a community of people who can share your experience and help provide resources is important. But there are many people who are not on this webinar right now who do feel very alone in their struggle. And so I think, this is one way we try to reach them, and posting this webinar to share your experiences hopefully will reach more people. Heather, go ahead.
Very excited to point out Jackie Christensen's comment, if I may. It's so important to remain in communities, and to do that, we need to be able to communicate. That's why I'm producing a documentary about how PD affects speech. This is huge.
Yeah.
To be cut off from talking, and it's happening to so many of us. It affects all of our relationships. So making augmentative and alternative communication devices. Wow, that's a mouthful. Augmentative and alternative communication devices for those of us with speech problems. Yes, please, please. I want to talk to my friend. Yeah. Again, I was on a podcast with Mike Q and the other Mike. We don't hear from him much because he doesn't speak much anymore. I want these devices for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Communication is so hard already.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about some of the motor symptoms of Parkinson's. But there are many non-motor symptoms of Parkinson's disease that can really vary from person to person, and impact, our quality of life with the disease. Speech difficulties is one of those. We know women with Parkinson's might also experience, more symptoms of fatigue, or other non-motor symptoms. And I was wondering if any of you maybe wanted to share, actually, if you've noticed any hormonal influence on your symptoms, be it motor or non-motor symptoms, because I think that's an area that's obviously pretty unique to women, and I think is really understudied in our field. And so I know I hear from my patients about how their hormones impact them. So I was wondering if any of you might want to share what you've noticed in terms of any hormonal impact on your symptoms.
I have not noticed a lot other than heat and cold regulation. That has been something more at night when I'm sleeping. I'm popping off the covers, I'm putting on the covers, I'm popping off the covers, kind of feeling. I've had a partial hysterectomy, so my situation might be different than someone else. My ovaries are still here, so there should be the hormonal parts that are still intact, but I'm just trying to point out that mine might be different. And but other than that, emotional regulation sometimes, being sad or happy, that can sometimes can be kind of in the mix. Like I'm more easily upset where someone if says something, then I'll go to tears. And my daughter just came home from 7 months, and she texts me as she's getting off the plane. She's like, "Mom, please do not cry
Oh.
when I'm there, because I'm going to pretend you're not my mom for a moment when you're crying." So this whole like feeling of emotion sometimes just kind of gets there.
Heather, I saw your face reacting to Laura's some of Laura's comments. I was wondering if you wanted to
I'm
share.
so glad that you asked this, because this ties right into mental health, which is grossly underserved in our medical communities, just grossly underserved. We need to talk more about these things. I was recently with a new doctor, and I gave him some questions when I got there. And I said, "Well, what about the hormones?" And he goes, "I don't know anything about that." And I said, "I'm trusting you with my brain surgery. I don't know about this, man. You know, let's talk about this more later." But I was just writing too in the chat that the epinephrine and the things that bring us down from our extended fight or flight, or the nervous system dysregulation that happens so often with Parkinson's, it's not your fault. Ladies, I'm talking to you. You're not crazy. Don't even listen to that kind of talk. It is a chemical response. We do not have the chemical. You know what, Dr. Keener, I'm gonna defer to you. Can you explain this better? I'm sure you can.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly try, but you're right. I think there's a lot of stigma around mental health. We know that for men and women with Parkinson's disease, that the incidence of emotional dysregulation, some people describe it as feeling like their emotions are much closer to the surface than they used to be. But even depression, anxiety, very common in Parkinson's among men and women both. And I think very much not talked about a lot. And you're right, it's not just that, oh, woe is me, I have
Right.
Parkinson's. It's actually a change in those chemicals in the brain that are contributing to your emotions. And so it's not, it's not just that you're feeling sorry for yourself, or that it's a reaction to something else. It's part of the disease itself, part of those chemical changes in the brain. And yes, and hormones definitely can play a role in that. So
menopause.
Yeah, so menopause is huge, right?
Patricia and Laura, and maybe not you, Adrian, but do you remember the song "The Men All Pause"? I knew I was looking at you. I don't think they're talking about menopause, because we don't feel so good when we're going through that. It's more like the outline of a sweaty bed sheet. Yeah, menopause definitely changes the meds, because every third week my meds wouldn't work. And you know who had to point this out to me was Gaynor Edwards. We were chatting. Gaynor Edwards is over in the motherland, and she said, "Hey, are your meds off once a month?" And I said, "Yeah. Why hasn't anybody ever talked about this?" She brought it up, and lo and behold, someone else brought it to the forefront, and it's now common knowledge.
Yeah. Premenstrual worsening of symptoms, definitely very commonly described. And I want to also just highlight a comment in the chat about one of our participants who carried a pregnancy while living with Parkinson's disease. And the way, I mean, talk about dramatic hormone shifts, right? For any of us who have children, we know what havoc that can wreak. And so navigating pregnancy with Parkinson's, also something that's extremely understudied and that we don't know much about. I want to give a shout out to Dr. Osterban, who's an OBGYN living with Parkinson's disease and is starting a registry to gather information about women with Parkinson's who are pregnant, to learn more about their experiences, how their symptoms change, how their response to medications change. throughout pregnancy. So certainly, and I think we get questions frequently too for women who are experiencing menopause about, is hormone replacement therapy going to be good or bad for my brain? Because we hear actually very conflicting data about whether or not that might be helpful or harmful in the long run. And so that's another area I think where the jury is still out. We need much more intensive research. But I think acknowledging and being able to talk about, should I be adjusting my levodopa regimen during that week when I'm, once a month when I'm feeling horrible? Like, are there things that we can do differently to make these challenges more navigable? So, so thank you all for sharing your experiences there. I actually, we're at 40 minutes into the hour, and I just had one other sort of topic that I wanted to bring up, but I will just say, I encourage you all again to ask your questions in the chat if you have any. I really appreciate sharing all your experiences there and the wonderful words of support and resources there too. So please put questions in the chat. But the last topic that I wanted to bring up, and Heather, you mentioned your art there in the background, but I wanted to talk a little bit about, I sort of wanted to ask our panelists what they feel being sort of on a panel like this has done for them, and the way maybe using storytelling and sharing our experiences through a panel like this, or through art, or I know some people might write a blog, but what do you think that gives back to you as an individual, sort of being a participant in something like this?
For sure.
It helps me to know that whatever information that I find out for myself, if I can spread it to the next person, that I've done my job by helping the next one. And I'm 73, so all of you young people, I feel like a mom to you. So I definitely feel by helping one another, you get back more than you give.
Laura, tell me a bit about what's your experience been participating in things like this?
Connection, the feeling that you are not crazy, like Heather was saying, that you can be connected to other people, and that even though your symptoms may be different, there are some things that are the same, and you can support each other and know that there's someone else out there that can give you that boost up kind of feeling. One of the things that at PCLA that in the women's group we've done is we've have a spreadsheet of all the names and ladies, and if you need some support, you can reach out to one of the ladies and we support each other. That has been a beautiful connection. And the other thing is that it also doesn't, it kind of helps other people. For me, it helps other people, but it helps me know that I'm helping other people, like Patricia was saying. And that when you aren't being diagnosed, or when you don't know enough about Parkinson's, you can hear it from someone that now you either know or that you're getting to know. So
Yeah.
I think that part's important too. Education is important.
Oh, yes.
I like what you said. I'm not afraid to hear what's coming up either. Some people are like, don't tell these newbies the things you just said. Let them have their moment. And I'm like, I'm not squishing their moment. I'm just saying you might want to think about, I mean, presumably you're in for the long haul, and that's a gift. It isn't ALS. It's not MS. It is not multiple system atrophy or a plethora of other things. Like, I don't know, my friend Augie died of Wilson's disease because he couldn't process copper, and that went really fast. In fact, I still have the dog named after him. His dog that he gave us outlived him. So it's not like, because this disease is so slow, it doesn't get a lot of attention. You know, it's not very like glamorous. It's not one of those crazy big things. But here's the thing, it's absolute torture if you don't find something to do that gives you some juice. Work out like you mean it for your brain, not for your body. You're not working out to look good. You're working out to live.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go to that 85% heart rate, you know, hit
Yes.
the pains, hit the dance floor, hit the nature walks. If you can walk, if you
Yep.
can't find a way to get outside, if you can't work out, sit in a chair and do it. You have to stay connected. Whatever it is that brings you joy, you got to do it.
Yeah.
You know, memento mori. You know, we're not here for a long time. We're just not. So if you like flower arranging, go for it. Don't wait, you know, eat off the good china.
I love that. Yeah, I think finding those things that bring you joy, and also feeling empowered to, you know, to take some control, right? And you know, if that's like, I know what I can do that's good for me is exercise, or what makes me feel good is, you know, like you said, flower arranging or painting, or you know, whatever it is. But I think embracing those things that help connect us to one another, and that also help empower us. And I think, you know, sharing our stories during an event like this is one of those ways that we can do that. Patricia, I think you wanted to add a comment, and then we've got.
Yes, I just wanted to remind those who are listening that there are a number of programs that are available online. It's nicer if you can be in person, but we have at Cal State LA Speak Out, we have the National Speak Out. But there's a lot of different programs that are available. You just have to decide which one you want to concentrate and ask. Call the different organizations. And I have to say, the other thing that we all need to do is we need to become politically involved. We need to change what's happening to us. And that oftentimes requires you to talk to your representative and ask them to pass bills, just like the National Act. But if you don't do it for yourself, do it for the next person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that, paying it forward. Well, I think one topic that has come up in the chat that I'll bring to our panel is a question about deep brain stimulation. And I'll maybe just give a little bit of background in that there have been several studies looking at gender disparities in DBS and trying to explore reasons why women are much less likely than men to get DBS for Parkinson's disease. And so you might, I don't know if any of you on our panel have considered DBS or have any thoughts about it, or know anybody else maybe who's gone through with the surgery. But it looks like a lot of people would love to hear more about what you think about deep brain stimulation surgery for Parkinson's.
Have you had it, Laura or Patricia?
No.
No,
Yeah. Yes,
but if it comes to a point where it looks like that's the best option for me, I most definitely will take it. I'm hoping that it'll improve, the procedures will improve, but yes, I don't hear very many women having had it, so I'd like to hear from them to find out.
They have not shown the full gamut as much as they could, because the voices that get silenced, incidentally, are quiet because they lose their voices. But if you sit in a wheelchair in the airport, you can say to kids, "I'm a robot." And then when their kids or when their parents look over, you can go,
That's right.
and they're like, "Bye, robot." But here's the thing. It's a very complex issue. If you're shaky, it's one thing. If you're more stiff, it's another thing. There's the globus pallidus, or GPI, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's subthalamus nucleus. Say that 5 times fast, you get pony or something. But the difference is between about the size of a pinky nail and a pen tip. Trying to modify and organize these every time you get neuromodulated is very difficult. You got to go where the pros are, of course. You don't see your surgeon much. Just want to make sure their hands are steady. It's very complicated. There's Boston Scientific, there's Medtronic, and big one.
Yep, and Abbott is the third one. Yeah, so you're right. There are multiple different device manufacturers. There are different places in the brain where we can put the electrodes. And yes, it requires ongoing tuning of the stimulation. So it's not like you just get the surgery and you're done with it.
Very
Heather, do you mind
complicated.
sharing a little bit about, was it your neurologist who recommended the surgery?
Yes.
Did you bring it up? Tell me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't bring it up at all. I was kind of against it. My neurologist at UCSF recommended it, who then disappeared and gave me to the younger, newer doctors to practice on, although they were great. They're really great. I was a little sad that I didn't have access to him anymore. What I would say though about this is it's not a fix. If you have excruciating dystonia, it might help keep the worst of the dystonia at bay. But right now it's making me kind of disconnected because I took too many meds as well, and I don't have it to turn down right now. It's at my desk. But it also freezes me a lot. Sometimes when I turn it off, I can move better. So you just don't know what's going to happen. And this is not because the sales rep didn't come to every single time that I got modulated or anything like that. They really did their best to help me. But either the leads are placed wrong or it just wasn't for me. It's taking my voice slowly, and it's ruined my ability to dance. But so has Parkinson, so it's hard to tell which of this fit parcel. So it can help some people, especially people that are shaky dominant or tremor dominant. I've noticed they do pretty well with it. But if you're super stiff, I don't know.
I've noticed that on the PCLA women's group, there's a woman that has it, and she had tremors, and it has helped her be able to do what she needs to do. So it depends. I think it really depends, Heather. And I don't know when you got yours versus when she got hers, if there's an updated model.
That's just it. Technology is always changing.
That's right. But I just wanted to voice that when I first heard about it, I was like, no way, not even going to consider it. It is not going to be in my realm. And now as time is progressing, I'm just trying to accept that could be something I would consider. So going from no way, not going to happen, to maybe.
Yeah.
So I think it just gets to a place where if you feel that your options are starting to become more limited, then it might be worth the surgery, because surgery is surgery. And when you have surgery, you're also down and out for movement for a while too.
Correct.
So that really that actually scares me. The idea of not being able to exercise, that right there in itself is kind of frightening.
Yeah. I mean, I think you all are exactly right there. It's definitely not a cure for the disease. It's another tool in our armamentarium of treatments for the symptoms. But you're right, it depends very much on which symptoms are most bothersome for the individual person, and weighing those risks and benefits of the actual surgical procedure. I see here one of our participants posted in the chat that she wrote a book about her experience with DBS with a goal of helping people make a decision and cope with the after effects. So I have not read this book yet. I'm intrigued. Life with a Battery Operated Brain, Deep Brain Stimulation Surgery for Parkinson's Disease. So I will definitely be checking that one out. So thank you all for sharing. And I do think, sort of like you said, Laura, at first when people hear, brain surgery, they're like, oh, no way. Like, I'm not letting anyone touch my brain, like with a 10-foot pole. So I think it is helpful, though, hearing from other people who have gone through it, meeting people who have had the surgery, hearing their experience. As a movement disorder specialist, I can tell you all about it and what I think it's going to help you with, but nothing I think can compare to talking to someone else who's actually gone through it. And so I think sharing those stories and having resources like Jackie's book that she mentioned in the chat are really wonderful. So thank you for sharing your experience, Heather.
Can I mention one more thing?
Yes.
I'm afraid to say too much about DBS here, so I won't talk about that anymore, but I will say, if you feel isolated, like you feel like you're not getting invited to parties anymore, not because you're an instigator like me, but because you're instigator, but because you are needing extra care with something, like your ability has changed. Just go out there and get it. Like, make it happen, make friends, find people who do invite you to the parties, and you have parties of your own. It can be by Zoom. Just stay connected, please. Lori Mishley always says that one of the factors that makes this speed up would be isolating.
Yeah.
I'm having extreme dyskinesia right now, so sometimes when I'm around, I'm a little odd, and people are probably a little uncomfortable, but you know what? Let them be uncomfortable. And you can know who you are. Just keep showing up as you are.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. Yeah. Lori Mishley it's a naturopath who's done a lot of work in Parkinson's disease. And the pandemic really highlighted how much social isolation impacted patients living with Parkinson's disease. And so, yes, the connection is key. We are social beings. The human species needs that social contact. And so I definitely would encourage you all to, like Heather said, to find people who accept you as you are and maintain those connections, be they virtual or otherwise. Yeah, thank you. We have about 5 minutes left, and so I actually wanted to leave the last 5 minutes maybe for each of our panelists to add, a pearl of wisdom or just share one final thought before we wrap up today. Patricia, is there anything we didn't chat about today that I didn't ask about that you want to share?
Other than that, there is help if you can't make it to a location or to a workshop or program. Many of the programs are online. That's a start. And then try as much as you can to get out of your house and get to talk to others. With my 2 groups, we get together for dinner or for lunch, and we discuss what similar to what we did here, and that is so helpful to hear what others have to say and what others have found as resources.
Yeah. Laura, do you have any parting thoughts?
I would echo getting out in nature, getting involved with something, go to a class, even if it's a painting class, a Mahjong class, because I take Mahjong. So try something new. It stimulates your brain. It forces those connections in your brain to work a little bit harder, challenge it. Definitely keep moving. One of the things that some of the women say is like, I've never been a big exerciser. Neither was I. I box, I play tennis, I play ping pong, not all at once.
But that would be a challenge.
I was picturing Kali with all the hands.
That's right. Just
with a string of obstacles.
Just do something to get your body moving. Try different things, ballroom dancing, anything at all. Do it online, do it in groups, do it outside, but just don't stop. Don't give up, because you are important. And every night, these are my closing things that I do when I go to sleep. I think of 3 things that I'm grateful for. It helps me sleep better. Helps me remember what was the good things about the day. And it puts things in perspective for what is important.
I love that. Yeah. So a gratitude practice of reflection. I think we all could benefit from doing that with or without Parkinson's disease.
Yes.
And I think that's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Heather, do you want to share any parting words?
So think outside the box, be the outlier, stand upside down, change your perspective constantly. If you look at something from a different perspective, it'll help you. I say this as a person who is currently depressed. I'm going through a horrible time. I was crying to my mom yesterday, saying, woe is me. She's 81. She's probably like, lady, it's going to be okay. We've all been through this. I had a friend that went through a horrible time recently, breast cancer, all kinds of things were happening. And there's such humiliation in having your body change and your health opened up for everybody to chime in about what you did or didn't do right, or how you could do this better, or let people say what they will. Unless they're in the arena with you, they just don't know. They're not trying to hurt you by saying things that are seemingly hurtful or rude or just uneducated or whatever. Remember, you're loved. And gratitude practice is great. I would also say, go ahead and box, punch things, punch a pillow if you can. Let it rip. Have those days where you're just blurting out obscenities. Let it rip. Because your body does keep the score. That book is true. I want to give one more punch for something too. And I know we're over time here. Thank you for indulging me. This is not proselytizing, but you have to find a spiritual practice of some sort. Don't even call it spiritual if you don't want to. Call it a meditation or whatever. Sit still and just watch your mind and go, there you are thinking.
That is wonderful. Yeah, I think, these are really, I think, beautiful reflections on life in general. And I think when you're living with something like Parkinson's disease, where sometimes you might feel like it's robbing you of certain things, you don't feel like the person you used to be. I think it's okay to acknowledge that, like Heather said, but to find a way through that and focus on the things that you're grateful for. And I think stay active and maintaining hope for the future. I often say, movement is medicine. And that's especially true in Parkinson's disease. And so whatever brings you joy, keeping your body movement. In this wild state, the truth is fluid, slippery, vagrant, scrambled, promiscuous, kaleidoscopic, and outrageously abundant. Wow, those are really wonderful adjectives. I love that. I love that. But yes, I think, trying to sort of not lose your identity to the disease is something also that I hear a lot from women living with Parkinson's disease. So don't let it own you. You are still you, and I am so grateful for really the profound sort of and vulnerable moments that we've shared here today. I really appreciate each of our panelists opening up about their experiences. I thank you to all of our participants for chiming in the chat with words of support and wisdom, sharing resources and hope and commiseration. So thank you all. I know we're over time, so we will wrap this up, but thank you.
I just want to thank all of our panelists, Dr. Keener as a moderator. Thank you all. This was an amazing event. And I just have to say that it was made possible by our wonderful sponsors, Abbott, Acadia, and Boston Scientific. And also, if you really enjoyed this program today, please visit PCLA.org. And if you can, make your donation today. More than ever, we are trying to implement more new programs. We are trying to get more happening within the community to really bring people together. And I hope that by you donating to PCLA, you can help us join in our mission to improve the lives of families in our community that live with Parkinson's disease, and also empower you to do more for yourself. Thank you all. This was an absolutely wonderful webinar. I am so honored and privileged to be able to be a part of it. Thank you all, and see you soon.
Thank you, Judy.
Take care. Thank you, everyone.